worst drought in the history of the United States, also known as the Dust Bowl, took place during the 1930s. This period of time was marked by severe dust storms that caused widespread devastation across the Great Plains. It all started when severe drought conditions led to poor farming practices. Farmers were encouraged to grow more crops to make up for the low prices of the previous years, but this only worsened the situation. The crops would eventually fail, and the topsoil, which had already been depleted of nutrients due to over-farming, would be blown away by strong winds, creating massive dust storms. These dust storms would go on to displace millions of farmers from their homes in the Great Plains. In fact, by 1936, about 2.5 million people had left the plains, mostly to find work in California. But the reality was that most of them ended up working long hours for low wages while living in poverty. When the crops failed and the topsoil blew away, the cattle died and the families starved. It was such a desperate situation that some families were even forced to eat their pets. Many of those who didn't leave the plains behind died there, including the famous author John Steinbeck's family. His younger brother died of starvation. This humanitarian crisis would go on to contribute to the Great Depression's immense suffering. President Franklin D. Roosevelt would eventually declare the drought a national disaster and send in the U.S. Army to help with the relief efforts. However, it would take several years for the situation to improve. In 1938, for example, a major flood in the Mississippi River Basin killed thousands of cattle and caused millions of dollars in damages. But by the late 1930s, the drought finally began to end. By 1941, the country was suffering from another major drought, but it was nothing compared to the one that had just taken place. After the devastating effects of the Dust Bowl, farmers began to change their practices to prevent another mass displacement and starvation. The federal government also implemented new policies to protect the environment and the farmers, such as the Soil Conservation Service, which was created in 1935 to provide farmers with expert advice on how to better manage their land. However, these measures were not enough to prevent another dust storm in the 1960s. To learn about that, stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content.